Log entry 7.4.3. We encountered the creatures from the Sol system. The Council's designation was Space ORCs. We thought it was hyperbole, a primitive slur. It's not. We saw one of them. We saw it break its own bones to escape a pressure trap. It screamed, not in pain, but frustration. They don't fear death. They don't fear pain. I think they just taught it to us. The designation isn't an insult. It's a warning. Across the silent expanse of the galaxy, among civilizations that have tamed suns, a ghost story is told. It's not about cosmic horrors from another dimension or ancient, godlike machines. No, it's a story about a race of soft-skinned, two-legged mammals from a forgotten corner of the galaxy. It's a story about us, and in these whispers, we aren't explorers or diplomats. We are the monsters. They call us Space ORCs. This is the Sci-Fi theory that flips the script on humanity's place in the universe. It suggests that our best traits, resilience, adaptability, our stubborn, unbreakable spirit are, to everyone else, our most terrifying weapons. This is the story of why our supposed weaknesses might be our greatest strengths, and why our capacity for both incredible compassion and unmatched brutality makes us the true horrors of the cosmos. To understand why they'd fear us, you first have to understand them. Let's start with the Luminians of Cygnus X1. Picture a species born on a world without seasons, tidally locked to a gentle star. Their gravity is a fraction of ours, their atmosphere a calm, predictable soup of noble gases. For millennia, they have known nothing but stability. Their minds, like their world, are models of serene logic. Emotion is a messy flaw they engineered out of their genome 100,000 years ago. Their society is a perfect, frictionless machine. Their bodies are long, willowy, and delicate beings of pure intellect who see physical effort as a sign of catastrophic failure. Their starships aren't built. They're grown from crystal, gliding on cosmic currents like a thought, free ONS. The Luminians and other elder races have maintained the galactic peace, a web of treaties that prize order and predictability above all else. They are the space elves of our story, ancient, wise, and utterly contemptuous of chaos. My name, when you crunch it down into human sounds, is Xyla. I was a senior xenohistorian on the science vessel, the Stelliferous Echo. Our job was simple: watch new civilizations and see if they were logical enough to one day join the club. For ages, it was pretty uneventful. We catalogued silicon life that spoke in pure math and gaseous beings that lived in nebulae. They were all different, but they all made sense. Then, we got the directive to observe a new species from a planet designated Terra, a so-called death world. A bit of Sci-Fi slang for a planet that is, by galactic standards, exceptionally dangerous. The initial data was so bizarre we thought our systems were broken. Gravity, 9.8 m as a crushing force. The air, a corrosive mix of nitrogen and a dangerously flammable gas called oxygen. The planet was tectonically unstable, riddled with trillions of microscopic parasites, and prone to wild, unpredictable weather. And it orbited a G-type star known for belching out lethal radiation. By every logical metric, the place was a hellscape. Yet, something lived there. Bipeds calling themselves humans. The preliminary label for this species was a word from their own violent mythology, ORC. It was meant to describe their primitive tech and perceived barbarism. They'd just figured out how to leave their planet in ships that were basically controlled explosions in a can. They were loud, blasting chaotic signals music, stories, arguments into the void. We figured they were brutish, illogical primitives, a curiosity, but one whose own hostile planet would eventually kill them off. We were wrong, fatally wrong. Our miscalculation wasn't in underestimating their technology, but in underestimating the very hell that had made them. What you just heard from Zyla's point of view is the perfect setup for the humans as space ORC's theory. This idea, which got really popular in online communities like the Humanity Fuck Yeah subreddit, basically reframes everything about us through the eyes of older, and often much more fragile alien species. In fantasy, ORCs are brutish, strong, chaotic, and relentlessly tribal. The space ORC theory just applies that archetype to us. It suggests that to a galaxy of refined space elves, our normal, everyday lives would look like a constant, terrifying war for survival, and the key to this whole idea is the Death World concept. While Sci-Fi loves Earth-like planets, this theory argues that Earth is an outlier, an unusually harsh world. Our planet's high gravity, angry microbes, and violent weather have been a planetary-scale crucible. For millions of years, any life that wasn't incredibly durable, adaptable, and ruthlessly efficient was just erased. The result? A species that's biologically and psychologically built for chaos. A species that, when you take it off its homeworld, seems impossibly terrifyingly tough. We aren't strong despite evolving on a death world. We're strong because of it. Our baseline for normal is what other species would call a lethal nightmare. And that misunderstanding is where the horror begins. The mission was supposed to be distant observation. We were cloaked, silent, watching them stumble around in space. We were especially repulsed by their history and near unbroken series of violent conflicts against each other. They got most creative when they were finding new ways to kill one another. It was illogical. It was barbaric. It was Orcish. The catastrophe was a 1 in a trillion event. A subspace fracture ripped open right in our path. Alarms, a concept so foreign most of us had only read about them, shrieked. Our crystalline ship, designed for a graceful glide, shattered like glass. We didn't crash. We were thrown. The stelliferous echo became a dying star, streaking across an impossibly blue sky. The last thing I remember before impact was the gravity. It felt like the universe was trying to smear me onto the floor. I woke to silence and pain. Pain, that was a new one. And I was not a fan. My slender limbs were broken. A harsh, yellow light filtered through a gash in the hull. The air was a chemical assault of smells I couldn't identify. My surviving crewmates were just as broken. We were trapped, crippled, on a world that was actively trying to kill us with its gravity alone. According to protocol, the logical move was to accept our fate. Survival was impossible. So we would wait to die. On the third cycle of our grim, logical wait, they found us. They came out of the dense, green jungle, moving with a speed in this gravity that was biologically obscene. 5 of them. Short, broad, covered in crude fabrics. The humans. The ORCs. They approached cautiously, but without fear. One carried a solid projectile weapon, primitive, but effective. They spoke in a series of harsh, guttural barks. We watched from a crack in the hull, our 3 hearts drumming a rhythm of pure logical dread. They were scavengers. They saw our ship not as a tomb, but as a prize. One of them, a broad-shouldered male, grabbed the torn, sharp edge of the hull and pulled. A sharp edge sliced his forearm deep. Dark red fluid, their internal coolant, I assumed welled up instantly. We expected him to cry out, to retreat. He did none of those things. He glanced at the bleeding gash, spat a single harsh syllable, a curse. I'd later learn, and wrapped a strip of dirty cloth around it, tightly. Then he went right back to pulling at the metal, his own red fluid now smearing the hull. He didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. The sight of a creature so indifferent to what should have been a crippling injury sent something new through me. Not logical acceptance of death. Something primal. Fear. This is a core part of the space ORC theory, the terrifying resilience of human biology. To a species like the Luminians, the human body is a nightmare of brute force and redundancy. Let's break down what Xylar saw. First, gravity. For many hypothetical aliens, just standing on Earth would be an extreme workout. For us, it's so normal we've developed sports around fighting it for hours. There's a great story where an alien diplomat just can't wrap his head around marathon runners who willingly subject themselves to 42 kilometers of grueling exertion. For fun, this endurance, likely born from persistence hunting on the African savanna, means humans can simply outlast almost anyone. We can literally run prey to death. Then there's our shocking tolerance for injury. The human who cut his arm is a perfect example. Our blood clots, our skin scars. We can break bones that fuse back together. We can lose limbs and survive. In another story, an alien watches in horror as a human gets impaled, survives, and calmly asks for coffee while waiting for the medics. Our ability to compartmentalize pain and keep going isn't normal. It's a superpower born from a world where getting hurt is just a fact of life. And finally, our immune system. Earth is a biological war zone. We swim in a sea of bacteria and viruses. Our immune system isn't a passive shield. It's a hyper-aggressive, violent internal army. It's so aggressive that it sometimes attacks the body itself in what we call autoimmune diseases, a concept utterly alien to a species from a sterile world. From an outside perspective, we are walking plague carriers who somehow tamed the monsters inside us. We even eat foods containing chemical irritants like capsaicin, a plant's defense mechanism for fun. From a Lemurian perspective, the human body isn't a temple. It's a fortress, scarred and ugly, built to withstand a constant siege. And the things living inside it are just as savage. They tore through the hull within the hour with crude tools and sheer brute strength. When they finally entered, we didn't resist. What was the point? Their reaction was unexpected. They didn't attack. They stopped, and a series of softer sounds passed between them. One of them, a female with a dark braid and startlingly blue eyes, knelt by me. Her name, I would learn, was Eva. Her face showed an expression. Our database translated as concern. They moved us. It was brutal. They splintered my broken limbs with sticks and cloth. The pain was an agony my people had no name for. I screamed. The human holding me just made a soft, shushing sound like you'd make to a frightened animal. My agony seemed to be, to them, just a noise. They took us to their settlement, a chaotic mess of habitats and scrap metal that smelled of burnt fuel, organic decay, and cooked food. Their culture was a nightmare. Their social rituals were bafflingly violent. We saw two males hitting each other with force. We expected a death. Instead, they ended up laughing and sharing a foul-smelling fermented drink. They called this sparring, a form of play. Their food was poison. They'd gather around an open fire and eat the charred flesh of other animals, seasoned with what my suit's analyzer identified as neurotoxins like capsaicin. Eva offered me some. Her expression fell when I refused. The translator called it disappointment. They bonded by sharing poison. Their art was chaos. In the evenings, they blasted loud, rhythmic noise through the camp. Heavy metal, they called it. It sounded like a factory collapsing. Yet they would move their bodies to it in a state of euphoric agitation, and their medicine was barbarism. A young boy dislocated his shoulder. The medic, a woman with scarred hands, put her foot on his chest, grabbed his arm, and yanked. The pop was sickening. The boy screamed, cursed, and then, moments later, thanked her and started moving his arm, his face wet with the saline fluid that leaks from their eyes during intense stimulus. Crying, they called it. I spent a lot of time talking with Eva, their leader. One cycle, I asked her, "Why do you live like this? This world, it's illogical. Why endure it?" Eva looked up from the kinetic rifle she was cleaning. A small smile played on her lips. We don't see it as hardship, Zyla. It's home. You see a death world. We see a challenge. Out here, you don't survive by being logical. You survive by being stubborn. She held up a metal slug. Your people grew beautiful, smart, fragile ships. Our ancestors left home in ships that were basically explosions in a metal box. Ugly, inefficient, but they worked. We work. When the elegant solution shatters, we're what's left. We're the cockroaches of the galaxy, Zyla, and we're damned proud of it. Her words were not comforting. A species that didn't just endure chaos, but took pride in it, that saw stubbornness as a virtue over logic. It was the most alien concept I had ever encountered. Eva's statement gets to the psychological core of the space ORC theory. It's not just our bodies, it's our minds that are terrifyingly resilient. From the outside, human psychology has to look like a complete and utter train wreck. Consider our social structures. We are a pack-bonding species, which leads to incredible loyalty and altruism within our in-group. That's the compassion Zyla saw. But that exact same instinct creates a ferocious, sometimes genocidal hostility to the out-group. Human history is a long, bloody testament to this duality. We can cry over a sad movie one minute and commit horrific violence the next. To a purely logical species that's terrifyingly unpredictable, then there's our attitude towards failure. As Eva said, we are stubborn. Failure isn't an end point. It's a data point. It's an obstacle to be smashed through with sheer irrational persistence. We're the species that looks at impossible odds and thinks, yeah, I'll give it a shot. You can't deter a human by telling them something is impossible. You might just encourage them. Our technology reflects this. Where a space elf might build a perfect ship with no backups because why would a perfect design fail? Human engineering is the opposite. Our most critical systems, like spacecraft, are often ugly, mass-produced, and filled with backups for the backups. Why? Because we have a cultural understanding that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We expect chaos. We build for it. An alien ship might suffer one critical failure and be doomed. A human ship can limp back to port with half its hull missing and the rest on fire. This is the mind of the space ORC, not just strong, but stubborn. Not just smart, but brutally pragmatic. A mind that doesn't try to avoid the storm, but to punch it in the face until it goes away. We'd been there for 10 cycles when the planet showed us why it was a true death world. It started with a low hum that vibrated through the rock. The humans all froze. Eva's head snapped up. They're awake, she said, her voice flat. They came at dusk. The ground boiled, and from hundreds of cracks, they emerged, silicon-based, insectoid creatures the size of a human torso, with razor-sharp crystal limbs. A swarm, my people, the Luminians, reacted with logic. The threat was overwhelming. Our shields were dead. The logical course was to retreat and await the inevitable. We huddled in the main habitat, preparing for our existence to cease. The humans did not. I will never forget what happened next. There was no panic, no despair, just a flurry of grim, focused activity. They weren't preparing to die. They were preparing to kill. They grabbed their primitive weapons. They dragged scrap metal into barricades. They armed crude explosives. This wasn't a military force. It was a tribe of scavengers defending their cave with the terrifying efficiency of a wolf pack. The swarm crashed against them in a wave of screeching crystal. The humans' kinetic weapons barked, spitting metal slugs that shattered crystalline bodies with brutal, physical force. The battle wasn't elegant. It was a maelstrom of noise, blood, and broken crystal. It was slaughter on both sides. A human would go down, pulled apart, and his comrades would just adjust their line, their fire never ceasing. They fought with a ferocity that defied all logic. They fought like ORCs. The main barricade was about to break, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. That's when Eva did something that will be forever burned into my memory. A huge creature, a brood mother, was tearing through the metal. Nothing could stop it. Eva saw this. She saw the collapsing defense. And she saw a narrow maintenance pipe running beneath the monster. Too small for a human in bulky gear to fit through. Without a word, she handed her rifle to the man beside her and armed 3 explosives. She ran to the pipe. She was too broad to fit. I saw her pause, brace herself against the wall, and then she threw her own shoulder out of its socket. The wet, tearing pop was audible even over the battle. Her arm went limp. Her face twisted, but she only grunted with effort. Now narrower, she squeezed into the pipe, dragging her useless arm behind her. She crawled under the brood mother, planted the charges, and scrambled out the other side just as they detonated. The explosion vaporized the creature and broke the swarm's attack. The remaining insects faltered, and the humans, letting out a terrifying, unified roar, surged forward and wiped them out. In the aftermath, the settlement was a charnel house, slick with human blood and shattered crystal. They'd lost almost a third of their people. But they had won. I watched, stunned, as the medic, Maria, approached Eva. The leader was pale, leaning against a wall, cradling her limp arm. "Pop it back in, Maria," Eva grunted, with the same brutal efficiency she'd shown the boy. Maria braced Eva and forced the joint back into place. Eva let out a sharp gasp, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on her face. Then she straightened up, rolled the freshly reset shoulder, and began giving orders. She had intentionally broken her own body to win, and her recovery was treated like a routine chore. In that moment, I finally understood. I understood the Space ORC label. I understood the fear. In this situation, my people would have calculated the odds and accepted extinction. Logic demanded it. The humans, faced with the same odds, told logic to go to hell and won through sheer, bloody-minded, self-destructive ferocity. We aren't Space ORCs because we're stupid. We are Space ORCs because our courage is indistinguishable from madness. We will break our own bones to win. We will walk through fire, not because we're immune, but because we've decided that whatever is on the other side is worth the burns. Our rescue came 2 weeks later. The Concordance ship was shocked to find any of us alive, let alone living among a thriving human settlement. ASI was carried onto the sterile shuttle. I looked back at Eva. She stood there, arm in a sling, surrounded by her tribe. They were rebuilding. They were mourning. And they were laughing. The sound echoed in the quiet clearing, a sound of impossible, terrifying resilience. Eva raised her good hand in farewell. My final report to the Concordance was extensive. I recommended the designation Space ORC be re-evaluated, not as a slur, but as a threat classification of the highest possible level. A warning that here was a species that had weaponized stubbornness. A species that treats death as a negotiation. A species that, if ever united, would not be stopped by logic or honor or cost-benefit analysis. They would only be stopped when every last one of them was dead. And even then, you should probably double-check. They aren't dangerous because they have the best ships or the smartest plans. They're dangerous because they are too stubborn to know when they are beaten. They are the species that looked at a world that should have killed them and called it home. They are the species that, when the universe tells them to lie down and die, simply spits in its eye and asks, "You and what army?" So, Zyla's story is fiction, obviously, but the theory behind it is a powerful and compelling thought experiment. It forces us to look at ourselves through a truly alien lens. To see our greatest virtues, our endurance, our empathy, our refusal to give up as potentially horrifying traits, from our ability to run prey into the ground, to our shockingly aggressive immune systems. From our love of spicy food to our ugly but impossibly durable technology, every part of the human experience can be framed as an attribute of the perfect monster. We may never know if we are alone, but if we're not, we have to consider that when we finally meet our galactic neighbors, they won't see us as angels. They will see the things that crawl out of the darkness. They will see the unbreakable, irrational, terrifyingly adaptive survivors of a world that should have killed us. They will see the space ORCs, and the scariest part, they might be right. What human trait do you think would terrify aliens the most? Our need for sleep? Our love of coffee? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the strange potential of humanity, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more.